Hello, everyone, and welcome to Renew's class today of Asks, Time, and Money. My name is Jen Brown. I am the lead trainer and curriculum designer here at Renew US. A tiny bit about us and Renew before we get started. As you know, today we are digging into the ask, talking about asks for time when we're thinking of volunteers, people getting involved in campaigns, whether they be electoral or issue-based. Also, when it comes to money and fundraising. What Renew is really trying to do is to build power at a state level. So we are truly engaged in state and lower level races, and we are working on building co-ops across the nation so people can put the power back in the hands of individuals and people versus these larger corporate interests and the status quo. So part of our mission with all of these classes coming up, and they were all available on Mobilize, is really to provide you with this information, with this knowledge base, as well as a community. So keep your eyes out for a community that's developing. We also have a campaign manager program that is linked in the notes to this video. So if you are interested in our 8-week campaign manager program, definitely click the link, find out more, and apply. Today, though, we are going to dig deep and hard into asks. So some of the things we're going to think about: introductions, we did it, check mark. Then we're going to do a short grounding for everyone. Then we're going to think about what makes a good ask, digging into why people do things, thinking about intentions and motivations. Then best practices, both in language and prepping your ask. And then finally, some speaking tips to practice like you play. One of the things I have to say, and you'll hear me say throughout, do not wait until the moment of an ask to start thinking about that ask. The ask should be the absolute last thing that you are doing on that specific day. You should have done that far and wide before, building a relationship and all of that good stuff. But I get ahead of myself and we're going to keep going. One thing I want you just to think about before we get started is I want you to think about what you are fighting for. Now, you're watching this video, so clearly you are interested in digging into asks. Clearly you're interested in changing the way you've been doing things, learning more, all of those great personal development goals. But what is the larger thing that you are fighting for? Why are you spending time out of your day learning about this, either here live or watching this video after? What does this look like? And just take a moment to think about that thing you're fighting for. And imagine that thing you're fighting for happens. How do you feel? One of the things that I'm fighting for, and the reason I like this, how did I feel, is I'm fighting for dignified housing for everyone. Here in Winston-Salem, I work with Housing Justice Now, which is an organization that helps tenants fight evictions. Now, I've been housing insecure in the past. I have couch surfed. I've been lucky enough to have friends that I could live with for extended periods of time. And I'm not talking weeks, I'm talking months. But when I was much younger, actually, we were going through a period of time where my parents, who are something to say the least, were not going through the best of times with their marriage, to the point that my dad was in jail and my mom was looking for a place to go. She didn't have access to any funds. She was a stay-at-home mom. My dad was removed from the household because of domestic violence. And here I was, a 5th grader, and here my brother was a 1st grader. And we actually had to stay in the house because we didn't have somewhere to go. And when I say have to stay in the house, my dad, the night that he actually got put in jail for domestic violence, bailed himself out and returned to the house, smashing light bulbs in the driveway and not wanting us to leave and demanding he be let back in. Because we didn't have anywhere to go, this is where we stayed, because there were no options, because my mom didn't have access to any sort of income or any place to go. my parents ended up staying in the marriage, we kept being in the household where there was a lot of pain inflicted on us consistently as kids. And while as an adult, I have made peace with my parents, I still remember the idea of being stuck in a situation that was not healthy, that was not good, because we literally had nowhere else to go. And because of that, I fight on a daily basis for people to have a place to go, even if it is not because they have to leave an unsafe situation. Housing is a human right, and the ability to acquire housing is not equal to what society feels you are worth as a worker. So that is what I'm fighting for consistently. And if people had access to fair and dignified housing that was not commodified and was a human right, I would feel amazing. I would feel so relieved that people could be the person that they feel like they can be and get out of situations or get into situations and not worry about this commodification of housing. So really grounding yourself in that thing that you're fighting for when you are taking on any sort of professional or personal development classes, I think in the political sphere helps us remember the people that we're working for and working with. We are not doing this for clout. We are doing this to change something. So thinking about that thing that you want to change, it's very important to remember, and this is our lead in to talking about asks today. In order to inspire hope, you have to have hope yourself. And so when you are asking for money or time, what you bring into that room, what you bring into that call, that Zoom, that letter you're writing, anything, that energy is reflected back at you. So if you see a person as just another supporter, that is not going to resonate if you don't have hope in yourself saying, this is a person that is an agent of change with me. They are fighting the fight with me. So using that to kind of jump into this idea of asks. Now, we all know unless you or your candidate are independently wealthy, you need to ask for time and money. You cannot be afraid. So this is something that we're going to talk about towards the end, how you're asking what you're asking. But I want you to think about that first grounding moment. Like, why are you doing this? Whatever this is. And keep that feeling of you accomplished that thing. How do you feel? Bringing that into your asks. So very briefly, we're going to go through some of the specifics that go into what makes a good ask. And then we're going to really start digging in a bit more. So first off, things that we know already. This is kind of a refresher. What makes a good ask? It needs to be a question. If you're not asking someone a yes or no question, you are not asking someone something. Words like, would you consider? That's not a yes or no. That's like, maybe I will. You want your question, your ask, to be what's known as a closed question. There's several different kinds of questions, just very briefly going through. There's an open-ended question. Open-ended questions allow for tons of responses. How are you doing today? You could get any response out there, right? I'm doing great. I'm doing terrible. I'm doing wonderful. I'm really sad. I'm really tired. Lots of different possible responses. So open questions, lots of responses. Leading and loaded questions will lead your person to an answer or an assumption. So leading or loaded asks might be, well, you're a good person, so you're going to donate today, right? You've given them really no option. They don't want to feel like a quote unquote bad person. So they're going to say yes, which is not a good thing to do in an ask. A closed question allows for one or two possible answers. Can you give $5 today to help our campaign meet a goal to hire more organizers? That you have a yes or a no. It might be a maybe, but you see how there's not a ton of possibilities there. So when you're asking a question, it's not just as easy as, is this a question? It's, is this a closed question? Then thinking about the next part needs to be a concrete step. We'll talk a bit about language and how you want the person you're asking to feel. But if it is not something that that donor of time or money can see themselves in, can see themselves physically doing or acting upon, your ask is probably not as strong as it can be. You want them to be able to see their own success and that step in it. Now, success. Success is not necessarily if your candidate or your issue wins or loses. Success is, how can I be successful in this? How can I either feel like, yes, I'm giving money or time and that is success, or I have considered giving money or time and that is success. And that's what I talk about with concrete. They want not to be confused by your ask. Thinking about specific. You want to know what you're asking for. They need to know what you're asking. And if they don't know what you're asking, or you don't exactly know what you're asking for, things can get really murky, and that takes away that concrete success. Then you want it to connect to the person. We're going to talk about influence in a little bit. Like I said earlier, that ask is the last thing that you're doing. You should think about it very early, but it's the last thing you're doing with this person. You want to build a relationship with that person, understand stakes, understand why they do the things that they do. If you don't have a relationship with that person, if it's just, oh, it's a supporter, you probably will have a lower success rate with your asks. Then you want a fallback plan. How do you turn that no into not now? How do you turn that no into maybe later? So think about, what is that next step if the no happens? We will talk about practicing like you play. Like I said, I'm going to say it a dozen times. Say these things out loud before the actual moment of saying it out loud. If you're working on a team, bounce it off the rest of your team. Practice with your team. If you're working with a candidate, you practice with your candidate, your candidate practices with you. And I'm saying like the whole 9 yards. Role play, say it like you mean it. Don't practice it in your head like, oh, will you give us $5? No. If you're going to work on Zoom, you want to practice on Zoom. If you're going to do it in person, practice with people in person. How you intend on doing it is how you need to be practicing. Care. If you don't care about the person or the outcome, back to that hope piece, it's going to feel that icky feeling of fundraising. That, oh, I feel like I'm asking these folks for something that they can't afford or can't do. When we talk about ethical fundraising, we don't necessarily mean like, should I be asking for money in this tough period of time for everyone? It's COVID. I really think ethical fundraising is caring about the person you're talking to, the outcome, and their stakes in that. They're not just a walking wallet. They're not just a warm body. They're a human that you are working with to change the world around you. That care piece is so incredibly important. And that being said, if you feel like going into something you are not caring for the day, do not let that be the day that you're making calls. Do not let that be the day that you are asking for volunteer support, because that energy will translate through your ask. So check in with yourself, even right now. How are you feeling? If you're feeling tired, if you're feeling a little exhausted by the world around you, either hype yourself up if you have to do asks today, or don't do them today. And when I say hype yourself up, I will dance around when I'm doing asks. I will find some good tunes in the background so I have my energy up. Because if you're not caring about yourself, there's no way you can care about that other person on the other end. And then finally, for this one, again, basics, right? Make it bigger than this moment. What is that long-term change that you're hoping to inspire? What is the larger piece that you want to happen? If you're not thinking past today, why should that supporter, whether they be a volunteer or a donor, care about past today? So I want to be really clear by saying that asking for time and money are exactly the same at the core. Time is just as valuable as money for individuals. So when we're thinking about this ask, all of the steps are the same. It may sound a little different. You may have a different end goal. Can you sign up for this versus can you give $5? Really thinking about them as the same will help you value that time as much as you value that dollar. You are asking for a limited resource. People in grassroots campaigns, most of you watching this video are probably working with grassroots campaigns. Most of you here are probably not interested in working on these giant, super fun, fossil fuel, corporate PAC funded campaigns. You're interested in the individual. So when we're thinking about that grassroots, when we're thinking about those individuals that are powering your campaign, whether it be issue-based or electoral, their time is so valuable. So is their money. Thinking about them as the same, putting them on the same level of importance will allow you to understand what that person is giving in the end and what you're asking for. So as I mentioned, that ask is that last step of the relationship building process when you are thinking about what you need from that person. So let's think about the first step. So the first step is really thinking about why people do things. Now, we're all influenced by 3 different areas, and I'll give some examples of this as well. While I'm talking through these, think about why you do things. Why are you influenced? So the first one, you've got your head. Your head is knowledge, understanding, facts, figures, logic. That is a way to convince you. If someone told you, hey, 9 out of 10 people have given to this campaign, maybe that fact convinces you a little bit. We'll talk about how that overlaps with hands in a moment, but really head is driven by information. So thinking about why people do a thing, they're convinced with science, logic, facts, figures. I am very respected, or I respect science a lot. I don't necessarily get completely convinced by science. Science will make me do certain things for my own health, but like statistics and numbers, I'm kind of like, oh, okay. It's not my strong point for influence. Hands is another piece of influence. I can be a bit more influenced by hands, and most people can, and you're about to hear why. It's relating with your activity in your life. Hands is collective action. Hands is fear of missing out. Hands are, when I was saying the 9 out of 10 people are doing this, oh, well, I don't want to be the one person who's not doing this. Or, oh, wow, there's so much support behind this. Contrary to popular belief, most people don't want to be the first to do something or try something. You might want to be in your friend group. You probably aren't the first person to try some random mushroom that's growing in the woods that no one's taste tested before, or some random new sporting activity that seems very risk interested. So thinking about hands, you want to think about how that ties to their everyday life, how that ties to all of these activities, how it connects with your way of interacting in the world around you. Again, it can be FOMO, it can be social action, but having that influence piece be like, oh, this affects my daily life. This affects how I interact with the world around me. That's your hands influence. And then finally, your heart. Your heart, passion, beliefs, story. Now, heart-centered influence folks, you might get touched by a commercial. That's when that story of self, of why you're doing what you're doing, really comes into play. You want to know about the people you're helping. You want to know about why they want to do what they want to do. So when you're looking at this collectively, chances are you're somewhere either in the center of the Venn diagram, or maybe you're a little off to the side center. So thinking about where you place yourself, personally, I would place myself in the center, but lower in the center, like maybe to the edge of the head, probably a little over to the heart, but still affected by hands. And the reason this is important is because when you are asking someone for those valuable resources like time, like money, thinking about why they do what they do and about the technique you're using with them. Best techniques will fall in the center. They might lean, like I said, a little towards heart, a little towards hands, a little towards head, depending on the person. But if you are all head in your technique, if you are all stats and figures and facts and no heart or hands, you're probably ignoring a large portion of the possible supporters to your campaign. So looking at any sort of ask and relationship building, understanding the intersection between the three is a really good initial activity. Not just thinking about the audience in that way, but also thinking about how you're presenting that ask. So for example, mask up, flatten the curve. Remember that back in the beginning of the pandemic? That was one of the most centralized head, hands, heart influence ask that I have ever seen. You've got, we're all in this together. That's that hands. We have to do this together. It can't just be one of us. You've got that head piece. It's contagious. Remember all those air particle commercials where you'd see someone cough and you'd see it spread on the plane. So you've got that, oh, here's some science. Oh, we all got to do this together. And heart, let us work and stay back so the healthcare workers can do what they need to do. You've got these gripping images of healthcare workers with the ingrained that push down where their mask was. So you feel this sort of energy of, oh, my heart is attached to this. My collective action, we're all in this together. And these science facts. Now, the problem with that piece is because it was so centralized. It was right smack in the center. So you got people that had all of those intersections, but it kind of was almost generic in that way where it was exact center. If it would have maybe gone in this direction a bit more, if they thought a bit more that the exact center, what's good for everyone is not always good for everyone. Good for everyone means not good for anyone. I think that's what that suffered from. So when you're thinking about your ask, you don't want it to hit dead center. You want it to have a little bit of this depending on your candidate and issue, maybe a little bit of this depending on your supporter. So when you're going in that direction of head, hands, heart, have a few that really connect with these different personality types. And I firmly believe in really doing an audience analysis of the folks that you are reaching out to. Not only, like I said, where you're coming from with what convinces you, but also where they might be coming from. Think about why people get involved. Someone wants to volunteer. Are they volunteering because they have everyone else doing it? Are they volunteering because they are very passionate about the state of democracy? Are they volunteering because of the information that they get? Some people like to volunteer for political campaigns because it's an association with power. So really thinking about where that might fall, and with time and with money, will help you have these asks that are a bit more connected to that person. So like I was saying, you want to build that relationship first. In order to understand why people do things, you have to build a relationship. This removes that emotion of, oh, I'm only asking for money, or, oh, I'm only asking for time. Now, this is a more person-centric approach. If you do have to send an email out for fundraising, if you do have to send a text message out for fundraising, it is far better to segment an audience. Oh, these are people that signed up through relational connections, meaning they know someone in the campaign. These are people who are connected to the candidate or the issue. These are people that came in cold. And have that adjustment in relationship building before you send out that ask for money or time. That's going to allow that ask to be more informed. It should not, again, be blanket. Nothing should be blanket. You always should segment, whether it be an email, conversations, face-to-face, over Zoom. Make sure you are spending some time to at least understand the human on the other end and not just think of it as, oh, these are supporters. What does this supporter need? After you're thinking about that, you're starting to build your ask, right? So one of the things that I really wanted to dig into are some words that we're thinking about. Now, the one that I really want to bring up in this moment, we're going to go through a few others in a bit, thinking about the word consider. So consider is a word you should avoid at all costs. And here's why. The word consider allows them to disconnect from the emotion. So it is now something that they can think about at a later time and date. You are not asking them to stay in the moment with you. Consider da 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 da. You've offered them an out, essentially, from the here and now. Like I said, that ask is the last thing you do. So if you are building, whether it be in person, in an email, in a text, on a Zoom, you're building all of the why beforehand. And the ask comes at the end. If you built all this great emotional connection, relationship, all that good stuff, and then you offer an escape from that uncomfortable emotional moment, they're going to take it. So keeping them, allowing them to stay in that moment and not disconnect, avoid that word consider. Because if they get to think about it later, it also allows them to easily say no later. Because you've removed that, I am right here, we are in this moment together, I'm not giving you an easy out. Another thing that it does, and just to reiterate this, is it postpones the answer. Now, allowing this time to think about a donation of time or money means that supporters can then perpetually delay considering it. And it leaves room for that unnecessary follow-up that none of us truly want to do. Now, that follow-up that we do, we want to do it if we think there's a possibility. If we're doing it because it's just, like intended to lead up to that definitive and it never actually happens, it just keeps pushing off and pushing off, then you've just added a ton of work to your already busy schedule. So postponing that answer, I personally think it's better to get a no that you can then think about why no and see if it's truly a no or a not now versus I'll think about it later. I'll get back to you later. Because that get back to you later again, then you call and you pushed it off, and you have to rebuild the emotion every single time. And again, waste of your time, waste of your energy, waste of your candidate's time, waste of your stakeholders' time, not going to help. Thinking about building additional trust with that person, when you are in person, eye contact and good energy is something that I think we miss out from consistently on an ask. Now, a lot of times we are calling supporters, right? So let's talk about this good energy first. If we are calling with our ask, and like I said, you get the energy you put out. I want everyone to think about the last time they watched someone in an uncomfortable to them situation where the speaker or the person talking was supremely insecure. They might be fidgeting a lot with their hair. They might be looking down. They might be, like off to the side. That makes you feel insecure. That makes you feel bad for that person. That is never, ever, ever gonna help you get someone to donate those valuable resources. So when you are thinking about that good energy, check in before you call. Ground yourself. What does that mean? If you're sitting, both feet flat on the floor, You want to take up space in the chair you're in. What that means is you're not crunched up. You're not sitting like a croissant. If you're standing, you're not standing with one leg in front of the other, all twisted up. You are standing with weight on both of your feet. You are standing where you are not clenched. Now, if you need a quick thing to give yourself some good energy, again, sit or stand, make sure your feet are flat on the floor, you're not crunched, you're not holding any sort of energy in any place. And when I say holding sort of any energy, quick check-in, make sure you're not clenching your shoulders. Are your shoulders up by your ears? Are you leaned over your desk? Are you clenching your butt and hip area? Are you sucking in to take up less space? Really paying attention to those areas of your body and letting that go. And then if you are not having a great day, if you need to boost that energy, taking a few deep breaths that are coming all the way from your stomach area and just breathing in and out and in and out. If you realize your brain is going wild with anxiety right now, focus on something tangible. Oh, this cup feels cold when I touch it. Pay attention to the cold feeling. Smile while you speak. Your voice changes when you smile. And I mean, even a cheese-tastic fake smile. Here's the difference. Here's me saying to build additional trust by being in person, and then to build additional trust by being in person. Try that with yourself. Just say a line, smiling and not smiling. It brightens your voice. Brighter voices are responded to better in conversation. And I don't mean like, I'm smiling this whole time, so I sound like a fool, even when I'm hearing about this serious stuff. I'm saying when you say hello, if you are not smiling, why would someone want to continue talking to you? Especially if they don't know who you are in the beginning. The other side of that, the reason I say the breathing, there's a lot of studies out there that voices that are more resonant are taken more seriously. What is resonance? Resonance is the difference between someone who is breathing properly and someone who's holding a lot of anxiety and tension. You hear how my voice went up there? Vocal resonance is something that everyone can achieve by simply making sure you are breathing enough. So again, changing that energy that you're walking in with, and that walking in or sitting down for phone. And if you're in person, eye contact. If you're on Zoom, eye contact. Everyone take a moment real quick, find that camera on your computer. See my finger coming in? My camera is not looking at all the other people in the Zoom room. My camera is here. So if I want it to look like I am looking at you in the eyes on Zoom, I'm going to be looking at my camera. Now, I'm not going to stare down my camera. I'm going to look directly into my camera and on occasion, maybe look away to think about stuff, maybe look at my other screen, but I'm going to pretend that that is my eye contact because this helps to build trust. Trust is established within the first 7.5 seconds of a conversation. You have about that much time for someone to decide if they are going to continue talking to you or if they are going to be like, You might be able to win them back, but if you don't start strong, it's really hard to recover at that moment. With the ask, relating it to them as much as possible. So that's why I say it's the last thing you're doing. Now, we have a session coming up on deep canvassing, but you're kind of deep canvassing this person. You're hearing what they care about. You're hearing how they feel, and you're allowing your ask to be as flexible as possible. So if it's, can you give $5 to help us hire organizers for our campaign? Maybe you don't use those exact words every time. Maybe you say, hey, when you are talking about making sure everyone is paid a living wage, that completely aligned with everything that we are doing right now. We are paying all of our organizers. So today I want to ask you, can you give $5 so we can hire more organizers and pay them a living wage for our campaign? Right there, you have altered your ask with that relational bit of information. It's that connection. I want to really quickly, not really quickly, I want to go through these words that we hear a lot. So in this one, you've got a lot of language going into your ask. I'll say this again a couple of times. Above all, you want to make sure your words fit in your mouth. What does that mean? If you would never say one of these words, even if it's proven to be really great in asks, it will not come out really great for you. So make sure when you are doing your ask, that practice like you play, that make sure it comes out loud, either get comfortable saying the words that you've chosen to say, or pick words that work in your mouth. If you sound weird, if you feel weird saying it, the person is going to feel weird hearing it. Now, words: give versus donate versus contribute versus pitch in versus participate versus join in versus, there's so much scholarship on what works and what doesn't. Here are some thoughts. We tend to ask folks to make little contributions when we're coming from a place of apology. Maybe you're feeling fundraising is distasteful and you don't want to impose too much. Maybe you feel like it's begging and you don't want to feel greedy, or people don't have time. Whatever your motivation is for asking the equivalent of, could you give a little something, or any little bit would be helpful, you're not doing that person a service. You are making them think their gift is a drop in the bucket, that it doesn't matter, that it's just a little something. You won't get their most passionate commitment. You're probably not going to retain them, and you won't be able to agitate them for a larger commitment. Now, this is true again for dollars or time. It is okay to ask people who value your work to give a gift of a specific amount that will get the job done. Now, when I say that, you notice in the ask that I keep using, $5 so we can hire organizers. Now, $5 might seem small. Never once have I presented it as, oh, just $5 or that's all. No, $5 is something we are asking 100 people to do so we can hire X number of organizers for this many hours. And I've probably talked about that prior to this exact ask moment. Now, what this is you're making your donor feel like the hero, giving your story a happy ending, not like a member of the chorus. So we want to build power, right? We want for people to feel that they have taken these moments, and it's not just, oh, here's $5, here's one phone shift. No, like they are doing something that matters, that has an end goal. Yes, it takes all of us to do this, but you're not a supporting member of the cast. We are the cast. We are the heroes. Chorus members are great. Why not make every donor feel important and not just a supporting role? This is also why I don't really love the word contribution personally, because it implies that you are not the hero, but your payment towards a larger sum will help. It will contribute. I like give. I also like an idea of a gift, and you'll see why on the next slide when I define these words a little bit. The difference is very subtle. And again, it has to fit in your mouth, but look for the word you think will make that donor feel terrific. They're investing in larger projects. They're investing in something bigger than them. Say it again, say it 5 more times. It has to make sense coming out of your mouth though. Has to make sense. Now, I bring these up so you see what some of these words mean. Now, these are dictionary definitions, so thinking about what they mean straight up, everyone has different connotations, but let's look. So contribute, to give or supply in common with others. Works for the, hey, we're all in this together, folks. So if you are dealing with someone, back to why people give with the hands, maybe that is a stronger thing for you in your campaign. Donate, to present as a gift, grant, or contribution. Kind of all encompassing, right? Donate. People think donate, they think, I'm doing a good thing. Give. This is why I like this. To present voluntarily and without expecting compensation. The idea of choice lives with a gift. The agency of I am doing this thing lives with the idea of a gift. So using that word give, I think, is one of the strongest words if it fits in your mouth, because what that's going to do then is allow that person to be like, yeah, I chose this. Finally, thinking of investing. To use, give, devote time, talent, etc., as for a purpose or to achieve something. So thinking about investing in something larger than life, something bigger than you, really digging into the words that are coming out of your mouth is incredibly important with an ask. And finally, I cannot say this enough, practice these things out loud. If you are just writing them down, it's not going to work. Even when you're writing an email, read it out loud. Because if you're reading it out loud, you can hear flow. You can hear how it sounds to that person. Now, very few of us actually write and speak in the exact same way. So that might come up. Know that. At the same time, really paying attention to how your words are flowing, how your narrative is flowing, and how this falls on the reader's ears is incredibly important. When you are practicing out loud, I just want to say this very strongly, give feedback honestly. Again, give feedback honestly. Your asks, the first time you're doing them, the first time you're saying them, should never be to people that you're expecting commitment from. Your first time doing an ask should be to a coworker, to a colleague, to a friend, to a partner, to a candidate, to other stakeholders. Practice, practice, practice. And if you are doing these things, you will be very lucky in your asks. And at the very least, you'll be doing asks that matter and connect with the individuals in front of you. Again, thank you so much for your time. I am going to pause and stop the recording for our live audience. So we have a nice bucket recording for our video audience. Everyone have a wonderful day and take good care of yourselves. I will see you soon. Keep in touch with us via Mobilize on Facebook or on Twitter. And once again, if you are interested in our 8-week campaign manager program, we have information about it below this video in the text. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Take care.